A married couple often will have one joint trust, and the trust says if one of us dies, the other one carries on as the trustee by themselves. But a lot of times our surviving spouses don't realize they actually there are some things they have to do. And so let's talk about a couple of those things.
Sure. So sometimes people don't quite realize what kind of trust that they have, and they've set it up because they have a blended family, or someone was worried about a spouse remarrying after one dies, or they simply have a lot of money and the estate tax comes into question, and so they have to structure their trust for that way. And a lot of times, for all three of those scenarios, it's set up to where the trust splits after the first spouse dies, which creates work.
Right, and we do find this happens probably every month. We get a new client coming in who wants help with estate planning, and we discover, oh, your spouse died, and you are supposed to split this trust into two trusts, and that they didn't know that. They had no idea. So that's something. I guess the moral of the story there is if your spouse dies, go talk to your attorney and just figure this out. Is there something more that you have to do?
Yeah. Or if you're not sure now and you're both still alive, maybe you should check in with your attorney and make sure that it's going to be a smoother process. Like, it doesn't have to be, as difficult as it might be if you check in now.
Right. That's a really excellent point, because something that really impacts that whole situation is the fact that the tax laws changed a few years back, and that trust that splits into two trusts isn't necessarily the best thing for everybody anymore. And Madison's point is, find out now. Once one of you dies, it's a lot more difficult. So just check it out. Okay. When that happens, though, when the surviving spouse comes in and we have to tell them, oh, you have this kind of trust that splits into two, there are options.
Yeah. I mean, the big option that, other than splitting it, which is the first option, right, which requires time and an extra tax return, which is an added expense and a lot of work, is that you could petition the court to allow you to modify the trust, especially if it's, a 15-year-old, you haven't updated it, tax laws have changed, and that's not the purpose for the trust anymore.
Right, and we do those all the time. So yeah. in the right circumstance, in the right family situation,
yeah.
We can actually go fix that and address that problem by asking a judge to help us with that, and we've done that many times. But the other point, I guess, that I would make about that is, even if you are the surviving spouse and your spouse died several years ago, and you're hearing this now and saying, oh, I didn't do anything at all when my spouse died. It's never too late. We can go in and take care of these things, but it's so much better to do it sooner rather than later.
Yeah. Because a lot of it's based on the value of assets, and it's much harder to use historical valuation, especially in our housing market. It's a lot harder to do that. Like right now, if you value something, it's probably going to go for way more than asking. So it's hard to actually get those valuations, historically speaking.
Yeah, it's everything's easier when you do it in real time, rather than trying to look back 5 years.
Yeah, or undo all the stock trades that you've done and have to that's difficult, because now you're talking about tax basis issues. Like it's already complicated. So we don't want to make it any more complicated than it already is.
Yeah. So if you take nothing else away from this, you surviving spouses out there, if you didn't talk to your lawyer sort of soon after your spouse died, do it now. Just do it.